And we're back for this final segment on in this special program on objectivity in journalism. And we are joined by two working journalists here locally in the Commerce area, and they are Nick Bailey, who is the editor of the East Texan this year, and former editor of the East Texan not so long ago, Caleb Slinkard, who is now editor of the Commerce Journal, but also editor of the Rockwall Herald Banner and the Royce City Herald Banner. So you're a busy young man.
Yes, sir.
Before we get into some specific questions for you all, we had a clip a couple of minutes ago, someone bringing up the issue of credentialing journalists, because anybody sitting at a computer now has access to the internet, and their blog goes up, or whatever they want to put out there goes up. And it all seems to have sort of the same weight. You know, it's all out there, and you do a search, and it pops up. So what do you think about credentialing? Is that even something that we should worry with? But do we need to somehow let people know who's the, quote, professional journalist and who's not? So, Nick, I'll start with you on that.
I think that it is important to, I guess, differentiate between what I would consider a journalist and a blogger. And the difficulty does come out in, I guess, trying to identify is the objectivity within the journalism. You know, a big part of it is fact-checking and, I guess, really understanding how they present the story. You know, because you can put, like you said, you can put up anything on a blog and it may carry as much weight as, you know, a weekly newspaper. But I guess really understanding the credentials, you know, where do they get their education from? Is how are they being funded to do this? I guess what goals do they have in getting that message across? Those are things that I feel like I guess really define who is the objectivity within their message.
What about credentials, Caleb?
Well, I think that I've kind of enjoyed the breakdown between the professional journalist and what we consider kind of the citizen journalist. I think it's fascinating that people are getting involved in blogging, and there's a lot of reporting. I think it's great. I think it's important more for the reader to understand where they're getting their information from than necessarily identifying who the journalist is. And so I think there's a much larger burden on the reader to identify, okay, well, this is coming from this person, this is their agenda, this is who they work for, and so this is how my news is colored, as opposed to, oh, this guy writes for the New York Times, this guy writes for the LA Times, so he's a professional journalist, and everybody else should kind of be ignored. I don't think that's the way we should look at it, but I think as readers we have to become more responsible than we're used to.
And be more careful about analyzing
Absolutely.
what we're reading and where is it coming from.
Absolutely.
Let's have another clip from someone here in Commerce or at the university on the subject of objectivity in journalism.
Hello, and I'm standing here with Miss Laura and also Miss Sarah, and we're asking them about the objectivity in news. Okay, do you consider yourself to be liberal, moderate, or conservative?
Conservative. Conservative.
Do you think that the way that the media covers the presidential election is fair to both sides or favors one side?
It depends on what station you're watching, because one will favor one and the other will favor the other. So they do show favoritism, yes. So.
I agree. I mean, I have a couple news stations that I watch. I think one is a little more liberal than the other. And so that I think they do tend to favor, if they're more liberal, they tend to favor the more liberal and as well as with conservative.
Okay, so that if it is liberal, then that station favors liberal.
I feel like I see it.
Okay, and you feel the same way?
Yes.
Okay.
Guys, reactions to that? Caleb?
Well, they're absolutely right. I mean, I agree, particularly when it comes to broadcast news. There's some very obvious bias that's built in, I believe, to a lot of news programs. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing as long as you know that it's there, and as long as you have tools at your disposal to kind of analyze the news that you're getting. I mean, I get it would be nice to have, you know, like a Walter Cronkite where you can, you know, trust everything that he's saying, but you can't really do that today. On the other hand, you have access to so much more information, so as long as you know where to get it and how to analyze it, you can be as well informed as possible. I think the most important thing is to make sure to acknowledge where that bias is coming from and just to kind of be aware of it.
Nick?
I really agree with what he's saying. You know, every news station is going to have their particular slant on news. You know, even if they're covering the exact same news, they're gonna tell a different story. And I think with today's media and technology, we can gather information from all across the world practically instantly. So I guess being able to fact check and take the information that you get and create your own opinion really becomes the real standing point on that.
Let me ask you guys a question that someone asked in a previous clip in the program. In fact, it was James Hoover, who works on my car.
Right.
So I know him well. James had the question, why does it seem as if most reporters, editors, journalists are liberal or progressive? Now, first of all, that is the perception that a lot of people have. So is it an accurate perception? And if it is, then why? Caleb, what do you think?
Well, I don't think it's an accurate perception. I think that a lot of people pay attention to some national, international broadcast news, and they tend to get that opinion. But when you look at all of the newspapers and news outlets in the country, there's actually, it's broken down the same way it is in the country. You've got conservative pockets, liberal pockets, etc. So I don't think it's a fair perception, but I can understand where it comes from. And I think that when you have, as a journalist, you're supposed to know a little bit about everything. And so I think that the more educated you become and the more you kind of take information from all around the world, the more well-rounded you become, and you have an open mind, then that perception can definitely exist. But I think it's important for journalists to have that open mind, because we're all going to be biased, but we have to come at it with as open mind as possible to keep our bias from coloring what we do.
Nick?
I would definitely agree with that, and just, I guess, given the level of knowledge, like you said, we have to know a little bit about everything, and that gives us the understanding that not everyone looks at things the same way. And so, in doing so, we present things, I guess, as journalists, really more the straight facts without presenting. I guess we all do present some sort of bias, but we don't, hide things or shelter our readers from certain things. And I guess that would be, a little bit away from conservative views, But I think that it's a good thing for journalism. It shows that we're growing and that we're not sheltering our readers from anything.
Is it realistic to think that anyone can be truly objective and that they can put aside their biases, and everybody has them one way or another? You're bound to. Why not just abandon the whole notion of objectivity and just let people sort out information as best they can, and knowing that it comes from a particular point of view?
Well, I think it's still important to seek to attain that, unbiased, objective point of view, knowing that you can't ever reach that. That being said, I think that we have a lot of people that are paid to express their opinion, comment on the news. I think people confuse that with journalism a lot, and I think that that's where that perception comes from. But no, I think it's very important to try and become as objective as possible, so you don't cloud any facts, and try and present the reader as clear a view as they can. We don't want to make our readers do any more work than they have to. So
That's a good point. Nick?
I would definitely say that I agree, I guess, in the sense, I don't know that, I guess, true objective journalism exists anymore, but I do think that it is important for us to strive for that. At the end of the day, anytime you present the facts, there's going to be a perception of your particular stance on that. And, it's just a fact of life. We could take the Civil War and we could tell the same facts, but people are going to get two different perceptions of how we feel about it. And I think that presenting the facts as they are is the closest that we'll ever get to objective journalism.
Let's go to another clip now. Again, someone here in Commerce or at the university with a particular point of view on journalism and objectivity.
Alrighty. So, do you consider yourself liberal, moderate, or conservative, or would you rather not say?
I'd consider myself moderate, and I tend to lean probably a little more to the conservative side, but moderate.
Okay. Right. Well, do you think the way the media covers the presidential election is fair to both sides, or favors one side over the other?
I think it really depends on what channel or what kind of show is actually recording the event. I think they're biased either way. There's some channels that are biased to one side and some that are biased to the other side. So I think it just depends to me. Yeah.
Well, that's a fair assessment, though. But which side do you think that they favor more? Or we kind of said.
I'd probably say generally they would favor the liberal side more. CNN, MSNBC tend to be a little more in favor of a liberal.
Yeah, thanks. We're doing a TV show next Monday where we'll have news people and others talking about the idea of the media being objective. What one question would you want to ask about the way news is covered during a political race?
I would like to say, like, are there equal coverage of, Republican, conservative speeches, campaigning ads, are there equal coverage of liberal media ads as well, campaign ads? So, yeah, I guess so.
Well, that'll work. Well, I appreciate you talking with us today, and so that's it.
All right.
Okay. Presidential campaign coming down to the end. We just have a couple of minutes. What do you think about the coverage you've seen of the campaign, in particular the debates? Caleb?
Well, I think that, so many news organizations, there's so much information out there that I think that it's been covered as well and as poorly as it possibly could be. I think it's just up to the reader to find a credible news source, not just one they like, but one that they feel reports the news as accurately as possible. That's the best you can do. I think that there's bias either way, but, it's the world we live in.
On that note, I think that this year's election has been covered, I guess, in every aspect possible, as far as everything, just short of knowing what they read before they go to sleep. I would think that with this election, every news outlet is going to put their own slant on it. MSNBC, for example, they have their slant. Fox has their slant. And I think that it's good to have the two different ideas clash in the way they have so far.
Guys, we're out of time, but I want to thank you very much for being here.
Absolutely.
And they are, of course, Nick Bailey, who's the editor this year of the East Texan here on campus, and Caleb Slinkard, who is the former editor of the East Texan and is now with the Commerce Journal, the Rockwall Herald Banner, and the Roy City Herald Banner. Thanks again, fellas, for being here. You've been watching a special program on objectivity in journalism. This is part of the new Center for Objective Journalism at A&M Commerce that is being headed up by Dr. Tony DeMars. And this, of course, is presented by Maine Media TV and the radio TV program at Texas A&M University Commerce. We thank you for watching. I'm John Mark Dempsey.